Hi all, welcome back to another CPD session, which will be an educational video that will cover professional practice collaboration. Collaboration occurs frequently in the building industry, so as professional architects, it is expected that we are efficient and successful when working in a collaborative manner. Our collaboration depends on our positive personal relations and effective emotional connections between contributors, as well as trust among participants. This is developed only when there is time, effort, and energy put into the development of an accessible and functioning system for communication, as well as an acceptance of others' views. Interpersonal conflict needs need to be recognized as normal and even expected as the level of integration and personal involvement increases. And finally, an acceptance of others' needs. Intra- and interpersonal needs of individuals have to be addressed if alliances are going to successfully perform. The videos following will be a scenario of matters relating to collaboration with architects, clients, and consultants during a project tendering phase. What is a project tender, you might ask? Tendering is a process where an organization responds to a request for information or pricing related to the supply of goods and services from another organization. Organizations typically solicit tenders to more than one organization and will evaluate and accept tender bids that meet their need and offer the best value for money. The acceptance of a tender bid results in a contract between the organizations. Good practice for tendering. The process of tendering is a competitive, time-consuming, and costly task that heavily impacts the building industry. Due to the competitive nature of tendering, we must allow building projects to benefit from fair and reasonable tender procedures. So as tenderers, we must not engage in collusion, compensation fees, secret commission, or other improper arrangements which detract from true competition. What would happen if you're in breach of the principle? Let's say, for example, a protagonist contractor suspects that you have breached this principle due to your friendship with another tenderer and advises your client. What are the consequences? Well, this behavior would create a conflict of interest with all the bidders as well as with your client. It would tarnish your relationship with the bidders and the client, and it could also negatively impact on your reputation as well as the reputation of the company you work for. Worst case scenario, this behavior could be deemed as dishonest or fraudulent and a misconduct in a professional sense. This would be a breach of the Board of Architects Code of Practice, which could result in the board commencing in disciplinary action. How do we go about disclosing the conflict of interest? First, we must identify the underlying problems relating to the dilemma. Then, we should understand our responsibilities when addressing the dilemma professionally. And finally, we must act to address the problem to disclose the conflict of interest. So, how do we avoid being in this situation? As professionals, we should always try to avoid conflict of interest where possible. But due to the unavoidable nature presented by the protagonist contractor's accusation, we, as professionals, have the responsibility to disclose the conflict. What were the underlying problems presented in the dilemma? Well, the tender procedure was suspected to be unfair by the contractor, which has then caused the client to be wary in regards to your obligations to them. What is our responsibility? Well, firstly, we should be impartial in the tendering process. We must act with fairness and impartiality in administering building contracts. Therefore, we must not give or receive inducements to show favour or disfavour to any party. We must also serve the client in a competent and professional manner. Our obligation to the client is to exercise unprejudiced and unbiased judgment when performing professional services. So how do we take action? Firstly, we address the deemed impartial tendering process by identifying the provided equal opportunity that we have given to all the tenderers that would lead to a fair and equal tender that would result in the best possible offer to construct the proposed building for the client. This would be in the form of a pre-tender meeting, as well as a dissemination of the following documents recommended by the Australian Institute of Architects. Tender submissions could also be compared with a cost estimate by a third-party consultant, such as a quantity surveyor, to compare and determine the most appropriate bid. To finalise, I would then provide all bidders with a debriefing and feedback from the evaluation, which would explain why they were or were not the best suit for the tender bid. This information is useful as it can offer insight into how they can improve in future tenders. If there are any concerns or complaints relating to the tender process, a cross-examination of the information from the bids and the third-party cost estimate can be used as compelling evidence to reasonably and professionally mitigate these. Thank you for joining us on another CPD session. To claim your formal CPD, submit your written report at www.architecture.com.au/CPD.